that being that close to that kind of stuff is another example of why I think about like this day and why 9/11 and why it's hard to talk about, especially with the events that just happened to end the war, and to think about the fact that there was a deadline for 9/11.
This is the Violent Professional Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out the Violent Professional Podcast yet again. I am your host, Whiskey Mike. I assume you know that by now, but apparently you fucking don't. So, I'm going to try a few things this episode, and one of the things I'm going to try is to not curse so much. You know, I feel like that makes the episode, but whatever. You know, it's not good for algorithms and whatnot. The robots are apparently super offended by hearing the word fuck. It's like, I don't get it. Anyway, I would have started this episode off different. I've already released the Kraken, as you can see it, so we're ready to go. I'm going to talk about a few things after I get a sip of this beer, and then tell you why there's been a delay in episodes, what I've been doing for you listening right now. What's going on in my life, as much as you want to know. I need to raise this fucking microphone so I stop fidgeting with it. If you watch the last few episodes on YouTube, I fidget with this fucking thing because I feel like it's not in the right place. Probably because it's not at the right place, you know. So, yeah. Oh, I forgot. I gotta take a drink. Why didn't you remind me? Anyway. So we're starting this off. I understand that some of you didn't get the fun facts about cults on the last episode. I told you I'd do 10 days of cults leading up to the release of the OLP spinoff tale, but I totally fucked it up because I let Hubert Cumberdale take over, and we just didn't get to it. All right, he's not so much into the cults. He's more into the conspiracy theories and like how all that exists. So. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with another fun fact regarding cults. See, I already repositioned it. Okay, one of the facts about cults is women are more likely than men to join a cult. According to various research, women make up a whopping 70% of cult members. Damn. Around the globe. Psychologists have different ideas about why more women than men join cults. Dr. David Bromley of Virginia Commonwealth University points... That sounds made up. That sounds like that's like a University of Phoenix Online or some shit. Dr. David Bromley of Virginia Commonwealth University points out that women simply attend more social gatherings, either religious or otherwise. This makes women statistically more likely to join groups that will ultimately victimize them. Whoa. Gluttons for punishment, ladies. Others suggest it has to do with the fact that women have been oppressed for much of human history. Therefore, they're more comfortable being under an authority figure that wants to fuck them. Doesn't say that. Still others write this off as total crock. Emma Klein, the author of the best-selling cult-themed novel The Girls, theorized that young women are often taught to seek the attention of men and wait for a rescue. Joining a cult, says Klein, they seek the attention of men, but there's no men because the cults are mostly women. Joining a cult, says Klein, is a way for many young women to feel as if they are seizing their destiny. Where'd I get that from? I didn't make that shit up. Somebody else did. What's this website called? Let me cite this. Online. It's from online social. Sorry, excuse me. www.onlinepsychologydegree.info. That's what. I don't know. Maybe that's all bullshit. Maybe this is a cult website in itself. They're trying to recruit women into that fucking cult, whatever that is. But that's a fact about cults, apparently. A totally awesome fact that was made up for that website. You know, and you might be asking yourself, you're just tuning in to these episodes. Hold on, I am fucking all thumbs today. You know, you might be wondering, hey, why are you talking about cult facts? Well, where the fuck have you been? I don't know where the fuck you've been, but where have you been? Because there's a reason this podcast exists to some extent is because we made a cult, and we made it was a thought experiment. We created a cult from scratch, you know. So there's a bunch of different subjects we talk about on here. One of them is cults, fun facts of cults, and also I'm writing a book about a cult. I'm writing a book. It's a spin-off tale. It's not really a cult, this book. And I don't want to ruin it for some of you that are anxiously awaiting the arrival of the first completion of the first draft, which I'm currently on. But the book, spoiler alert, if you didn't listen to the episodes before, episode 13 will kick you off in the right direction. That'll get you going. This book I'm writing is the spin-off tale from the cult that we created called the Order of the Light Protectors. I feel like I'm fucking running in circles saying this shit over and over again. If you don't know what that is at this point, why did you just start listening? I'm glad you're here. I'm really glad you're here. But why did you just start? You have to go back and listen to the Order of the Light Protector cults. Episode 13, that's what'll kick you off. And then there's two others. All right. You know, talking about people that, you know, need cults, they're usually people that are self-conscious. They need to follow somebody. They feel oppressed in nature. Majority women. It makes me think, you know, and if you've heard me talk on other episodes, I talk about the psychology of people and the way that people confuse me, and I call it human behavior, weird human behavior. I feel like I'm an alien a lot of the times. People do weird fucking shit. And it makes me curious sometimes about how people go about their day and they try to fit in, or they don't know they're being weird. Have you ever had somebody that you interact with that is just weird to you? Because obviously, like, I could be considered weird to some people. You could be considered weird to some people. But I mean, like, on a day-to-day basis, I go through life, and I don't go, like, when I talk to people and I interact with people, I don't go, man, that dude's fucking weird. But it happens sometimes. Now, it hits even closer to home when it's one of your friends. All right? And it's kind of always... I'm not going to get into specifics, but this person has always been fucking weird. And I love this person as a friend, so therefore I'm not going to name them, and I don't want to feel bad. It's just there's things that people do, and really I got to steer clear of specifics here. But there's things that people do that make me quite like this. People or this person does that that takes me aback. I'm taken aback by the actions of said person sometimes. Where I sit there and I'm like Michael Scott from The Office, and I'm like, why are you the way you are? But more so than that, I'm just very confused about the way almost every interaction occurs. And it's hard to explain because I would have to say a specific story, but I do not want to. All right, but out of respect for my friendship and this person, I'm going to be very vague with this. Sometimes things are said or actions are taken when it's like, I will say A, and then the correct response that you would assume would be B. Now, if the person said C or D, it would be totally acceptable because we're like, well, not really. You know, it's kind of like B. But then they skip B, C, D, E, and they go right to fucking F. It's just like, where the fuck did you get F from? What the fuck? Like, and then I have to sit there and it's like, the response is so fucking odd. It's like, why did you choose to say F? Or why did you abruptly like message me and say fucking potato? Like, it's, if you're confused, I'm trying to portray how fucking confused I am sometimes with this specific person. And like, there's sometimes where I can't even respond and I can't even say anything. And it's just like, what the fuck? It makes me think that I'm going crazy. Like, legitimately, I like start to question reality. And it's not like someone who's gaslighting me. It's just like, this is who this person is. They say stuff from time to time, and it makes me question my sanity. Like, that's what it does. Now, granted, I love this person. Great friend. But goddamn it, does not know how to communicate sometimes. It's like, did your brain just switch off and then your body just made you talk? You know? Sometimes I have to ask friends, I'm like, hey, what the fuck is going on? Did you see this? And they're like, yep. I'm like, are you confused as I am? And they're like, yep. It's like, you have any, and I don't understand. Again, that's being very vague. That's being very vague for good reasons. I respect this person's good friend, but I'm just using an example because this isn't solely to this person. This has happened a few times in my life where the person doesn't pick up social cues and they say something completely fucking outlandish and think that it's like this profound statement. And it's really like so profound. It profoundly flew past my fucking understanding of fucking what the fuck you were saying. So anyway, you ever have that? Have you had that before where you interact with somebody on a day-to-day basis and you like care for this person, you love them, and you're just like, why are you the way you are? I don't fucking get it. Why can't you just fucking take a second, think about what you're going to say, and fucking say it? You know, sometimes people probably think that about me. You know, I probably have that same effect on people some days. But it's like, you know, some people, it will be everybody around you is thinking the same things. Like, why is this fucking person like this? Like, why are they doing this? And then it takes one person to go like, hey, have you guys noticed something? And everyone's like, yeah, I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to be a dick. You know? I'm sure some of you can relate to that. But since we were talking about psychology of cults, you know, and like, I thought about this today. It happened, and I woke up this morning, and I was like, what the fuck? I woke up to this shit. I woke up to this fucking shit. Anyway, moving on. So the book, you heard me say the book. I'm writing a book. It is a spin-off tale of the Order of the Light Protectors, cult classic, thought experiment. Now it's becoming a literary treasure. It will be. I started writing this little fucking silly ass short story or something. I had an idea. I wrote a framework for it. And it had to do with, I'm trying not to spoil it for people, but it doesn't really matter. If you want the book, you can read it. It's going to be on Amazon and everywhere. As soon as I get done with it, whenever that is. So I started writing this silly little thing, and it's based around the current times we're in about like everything that's going on that everyone's currently experiencing. And I don't want to say it because I do not want the algorithm to shut anything down. So I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying. Current events that's happening. It's been happening since 1999. It's probably been happening since 1999. It's been happening since 2019. The end of 2019. 2020 was really bad. And then we're in 2021. So I started writing this thing, and it was like based on the transition of presidential election in 2020. And it didn't start that way. Like, I started writing just based on the previous stuff, and it was going to have nothing to do with the Order of the Light Protectors. But somewhere along the line, I started writing about politics. I started writing about the cult stuff and tying it all together. And current events, changing names, and all that stuff. And I started writing this really ridiculously silly set of paragraphs, short story even. And as I wrote that, I was like, I'm building the framework for something. I don't know what it's going to be. Am I going to like get a comic book made? Am I going to make something out of it? Is it going to be just a really like short thing? Am I going to make a script for a fucking podcast episode where I basically like bullet statements? Like we didn't even have that with the Order of Light Protectors, but like bullet statements of like, is it going, like I'm going to have a list of things and I just talk and rattle off the top of my brain. Well, as I'm writing this, it started getting more and more in depth. I started adding more characters. I started developing characters. I started building a framework, and then boom! Before we do it, I had 10 chapters, with a prologue and epilogue. So maybe more because as I'm going along through this, on chat. Like I have the framework for the rough draft has 10 chapters, and an introduction and an epilogue, right? So as I'm going through this, it starts and I'm writing chapters. I start having ideas just like I do with anything. And it's like, oh, write that down. So I'll put like additions in the beginning as I'm writing. I go, I want to tie this in and I don't know where it's going to be. So what started as a certain flow has changed. So chapters have switched. I've added in characters, people, like characters that represent people in current popular culture and in the government, an unlikely hero that goes from zero to fucking hero real quick, and developing these people to be likable characters, a little bit silly, take some of my fucking brain ropes and throw it into the book, develop these characters and creatures into hopefully something awesome. So the status right now is I have the ideas and the framework for all of the chapters and where it's going to go, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I also have a bunch of characters laid out, and I have currently, I just finished chapter 3 last night. So moving on to chapter 4, right? If you could count chapter 4. And it's turning into something pretty interesting, and I'm pretty proud of it so far. There's one section where I have one of the hard things is like, I've discovered is writing dialogue for any story, right? Because this is my first like science fiction novel. Because believe me, it has to do with space and asteroids and fucking aliens and shit like that. But so what I discovered is writing like relatable dialogue is hard. So how do you make it more believable how this shit happens? Well, how I do this is sometimes I close my eyes and I think that I'm having a conversation with some of my friends. And I say, if this guy was this person, this character, what would they say in this scenario? Like if I could put myself in the main character's position, which by the way, I'm not. Hubert Cummerdale may or may not be in the book right now, but as a different kind of character, not the fucking 1990s conspiracy theory former war vet dude, but just a name with the glasses, because I know you guys love those glasses so much. But how do I build a book with dialogue and thoughts and make it seem natural and real? So I pretend I'm the main character, and because this is my creation, right? Like, what is the main character? What would he say in this particular situation, seeing as he's an old man that has been placed in a senior citizen's home? Stick with me. It's better than it sounds. If you read the book and they start releasing more information, it'll make sense. But the main character, the zero to hero, he meets somebody in the fucking old folks home, and it's a surprise to him because the guy just shows up in his fucking room like, how the fuck did you get here? And then the guy starts going over the rules of the old folks home, and he's much like he's kind of a version of Ben Stiller from Happy Gilmore, and then like 1950s train robber. Like, so he speaks in Old English, and like, so I essentially, to write this dialogue, which this one section I'm talking about specifically, and I bring it up because this was a big challenge, and I'm writing this and I'm like, I don't like this, because a lot of the other sections I wrote with dialogue, I'm like, this is fucking awesome, this is good, and like, you may not think it's awesome when you read it, but I think it's cool, like the way that everything's turning out, and I hope you do like it. So I put myself in this character's position, like, okay, he's gonna say this is easy, I can say this, but I'm introducing this new character that has to kind of be a dick, not as much as a dick as Ben Stiller was. You will go to sleep or I will put you to sleep, but just he's kind of a dick, and he's like very like about power. You're gonna listen to these rules, you're not gonna, do you understand these rules? No violation of these rules, you violate it one time, you're out. So he's laying the ground rules. And so for me to put myself in the position of the main character, like what would he say? What would he say in the position that this character said something? And then I envision my friends as any other character in there, and I like, sometimes I have to close my eyes and be like, okay, what would it say? Okay, he says this. What would this person say is like a natural response? And so that's kind of how I'm writing it. That may not be the correct answer, and I don't know in writing any sort of literature, is there a correct answer? I'm doing my best, and so far I'm pretty proud of it, with the exception of that one section of dialogue. That's what I found challenging so far. Usually the ideas come to me and I'm just like flowing, and I'm writing I'll sit down and I'll write 1,000 words, and I'll be like, okay, knowing full well that I'm going to edit that. So that's the other part, is I'm basically putting myself in this situation, writing till I stop. Sometimes I write 300 words and then I move on, and I go do something else, or sometimes I write 1,000, sometimes I write 1,200, and I just try to flow as much as I can without getting tired of writing, because I don't want it to be like a chore for me. I want it to be fun, and every time like tomorrow I'm gonna get up, maybe jump out of planes tomorrow, and then come back after that, and then have some, coming down from adrenaline, write some stuff. But so what? I lost my train of thought, but anyway, so the story so far, it's like, I think it's super interesting. And the one thing I had to change about what I was doing, because like, you can always assume that everybody knows what you're talking about with the Order of the Light Protectors and stuff like that. But I've written many things, and like, I have one book I haven't put out yet. I've got like, I think I got 50 more pages, and it's been 10 years in the making. But, and I still haven't released it or even edited it or anything like that. But, what I find is, like, with any of this writing shit, you gotta like be interested at the time. Like, it's hard, it's easy to lose interest in my world, right? So, because I do a lot of stuff, I try to do a lot of creative stuff, so I'm trying my best to make this a really interesting story. And part of that is like speaking from the terms of like, the reader is going to pick this up for the first time and not know what the fuck the setup for this whole thing is. So when I'm writing this, I always have to assume that you have never heard of the Order of Light Protectors, and you have to pick this up. And if I start talking about like, oh, the Seven and like this and that, it's going to be challenging, because you'd be like, you have to have a whole knowledge base about what the fuck I'm talking about to begin with. So I have to lay the story out and then introduce those topics in a certain way. So there's a portion of the book where I just briefly talk on the Order of the Light Protectors without being confusing or whatever. It's so vague, but if you listen to the Order of the Light Protectors, you understand. But it's a very key part of the final showdown, so to speak, about the hero learning about what the fuck is actually happening, because everything is very confusing. He's like, am I going senile? What are all these alien old people? Why are they always fucking during dinner time? Why are there always fucking orgies? Why do I feel amazing? There's also a really challenging part. I don't know if I talked about this on one of the previous episodes, but I got to write a fucking giant old person orgy sex scene. That's going to be shocking, because I already wrote some of it and I fucking almost puked onto my keyboard. as I was writing it because it's so fucking. No, it's actually really funny. As I'm writing it, I was fucking dying. Hashtag ghost babies. It's gonna be a good book. I really, going from where it was to like writing a rough draft and be like, oh, the Order of Light Protectors and trying to be silly with that. It's like now I'm limiting the amount of people that will even fucking understand. So I have to attack this thing like it's its own thing. It's a spin-off tale, but it's its own fucking thing. So even the title isn't gonna have a thing about the OLP. It's just gonna be its own. It's going to be its own story, and it's going to be interesting. And to be honest, like I was questioning the title itself. I'm calling it right now The Reserve, but I don't know. By the way, if you're on Patreon, you have access, and you haven't looked at it because some of you haven't. You have access to the first rough draft of the chapter 1 rough draft. If you're interested in checking out what the fucking book is going to be about, essentially, the first chapter has been released on Patreon. So if you want to go check that out, you can sign up for as little as $1, and you have access to the first chapter. Now, mind you, it's a very short section. It's only 7 pages, but that's the rough draft, or the first draft. And then from there, after I do the second draft, I'm going to add a shit ton of more facts after I go through the whole book. So you can go on there and see what the fucking premise of the book is. How am I doing with those F-bombs? Doing better? I'm trying to be better. I think I've said 4. I don't know. And so I thought about this. There's so much that I can put in this because as I go through, like as I'm on chapter 3 or now I'm on 4, I think back to other chapters. I'm just filling in gaps and putting in words, and then I think about other subjects and I throw them at the beginning. Where does this fit in? Where does this subject fit in? And I feel like that can be a constant fucking thing. You could constantly change. You can constantly add. For any of you people that have ever written anything out there, like maybe a novel or whatever, when my question is like, and you look at Stephen King and he has It, which is 1,000 pages, and like other authors that write these monumental fucking epics sagas like Dune, which is like 10 books or so, maybe even more, and it's like 2,000 pages or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, when do people know when it's done? Is there ever a time where authors just go, yes, this is perfect? Or is it just like me struggling with the fact like I'm filling in so much fucking information, and then as I'm writing other shit, I'm like, oh, that would be great for this. Is that like, for anybody that writes out there, is there like, when do you know you're done writing the book? Because I'm going on this, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be pretty long. Like, I think it's not going to be like a massive novel, but I'm like, there's so many details that are emerging from my brain as I'm creating this fucking tale, that it's like, will I know when it's done? Or will I just get tired of it and be like, that's enough, I'm beating a dead horse? I don't know. When does a writer know when they're done? Do they ever? Or do they just fucking call it quits when they're bored? If you know the answer or you've had experience with this, leave a comment below. Let me know. DM me. Help me out. Because I don't want this to be a thing where I just keep going and then I never release it like my previous book, like that I wrote, where I just keep going and I'm like, yeah, it's not done yet. I thought about this also with it is hot in here, by the way. I turned on the air conditioner. I'm fucking blazing. You're blazing. Well, you wear a fucking hoodie. Well, hold on. Take this off. So, look at my face now. So I thought, as I was writing this outline for this episode, I thought of like, there's people that don't understand where creativity comes from, or like there's people that I've met that aren't creative, and that's not a slam on them. It's like creativity is from your own perspective, right? Like I can think something's creative, and then other people won't think it's creative, and so like it's very subjective. It's very subjective to an individual about what creativity is or whatever. Creativity can be anything, right? Like you could draw a stick figure, and that could be creative in its own way. Although it's not very dynamic or very interesting, it could be creative in its own sort of way if it had intent and meant something. And I think that's where I think you can nail down what creativity is. It's not just putting some shit together or some art or whatever. It's like, what's the meaning behind all of it? Or was this just out of nowhere, or did you just want to do it? And it's like, what are ideas? What is creativity? They're cosmic babies, my baby. It's like a thought is like becomes tangible when you actually put effort behind it. And so what does the creative process look like? For me, it's a very passive thing. I kind of have a notebook around. I've got 3 over there. I've got one right here that usually sits on my desk next to where I sit. And I do many things like budgeting and like different thoughts I have, or like quotes, or just like writing down stuff for a job I do. But I try to keep a notebook around for just ideas, and sometimes it floats into a notebook where I've got other shit. And so I started thinking, like, what does the creative process look like in a passive way for me? How do I nail this shit down to what I think it is, and how it develops into something? And so I came up with some stuff, and so it's the first, like, these are like, I call it the 7-step cycle of creation. 7-step cycle of creation, because it starts over eventually, like, and especially with an idea, it gets conceived like a cosmic space baby out of nowhere into some dimension, into your fucking cerebral cortex. And so the conception of the idea is like the first step in the 7 steps. Now everybody's got their own fucking ideas of this, right? Like this is my own idea about, like, because I'm curious about psychology. Like if you've heard me talk about it on this episode alone, I'm curious about it. So it's like, where do fucking ideas come from? Like, how does it work? How do I make something? How do I make a podcast? Where do I get the Death Cheetah logo from? How did I come up with Violent Professional? Like like why did I put a grayed out cheetah with green eyes on there? So there's actually a reason for why he's got green eyes, why he's gray. But why do I like it? Why does the Death Cheetah, why does it speak to me? Like, it's not Violent Professional. You don't talk about very violent stuff other than cults and whatever else, and like random shit I talk about sometimes. So then from there, I guess the next step would be the production of whatever conceptualized idea you have. The idea could be vague. It could be whatever. And the production doesn't have to be like you actually make something tangible. It's like you think about it. You produce more on that idea you once had, and you move into the realization. Like this is where you actually, the spark hits and you're like, wow, now those 3 things could kind of like intermingle and happen at the same time. You could have an idea that sparks, you're like sitting there, cocked your head, and you're like, wait a second, and then you produce it in your brain, and then you realize that this is something. Then after the idea, the reaction, like how you feel about it when you tell people about it, like your response to it. and what they say about it. You know, do you tell people, and like more often than not, or people are like, oh, that's a fucking great idea, or they go, that's fucking stupid. If they say that all the time, you got bad friends, my friend. But, you know, I would prefer that they don't say anything at all and just be like, your idea fucking sucks. You know, I'm all for critiques and whatever, but creativity isn't a thing, I feel like, that where people are like, that's dumb. You know, like that kind of, when you think of stuff and you're like really into it, kind of digs at you when people are like, your ideas are stupid. You know what I mean? And the funny thing about human behavior, if you go, no, your ideas are stupid, like you just say the same fucking thing back to them, and then they go, hey, why are you such an asshole? It's just like, you said it first. I literally repeated what you said, ass. Don't call me an asshole. So your reaction to it, and then your replication of it. And so that's like going over those things and continuously developing until you get to further development where you take this and then enhance it. It's kind of like this step would be essentially like over the years, me changing the logo, getting new artwork done. The studio has changed over the years. Locations have changed over the years. And continuing to develop it, replication, further development. And then, as I always do, I re-envision. So, conception, production. My finger's all wonky because of that knife, if you remember. It's all fucked up from I should have went to the hospital. Conception, production, realization, reaction, replication, further development, and then re-envision, which is essentially the death of the idea, right? And that's where you totally take what you had, re-envision it, and then start from scratch. And that will go back into conception of a new cosmic baby from the same fucking thing, and then you move forward. I've done this throughout my life, and it's kind of like, you know, this may not be the greatest list of how ideas happen, but to me, it made sense. How did I get from this to that? How did I get from doing a podcast with shitty microphones to now we're doing a podcast with better audio, better camera, like, and then what's going to happen next? Like, what are we changing next? Like, I have ideas for what's the next stage. When I get to episode 100, or maybe before, I'm starting to go through this process and see what the next step is. Do I just cancel it? Hope not. I really enjoy the podcast. But, you know, life happens. You never know. But I'm trying to continue to do this. I'm trying to develop it because I thoroughly enjoy this. It's like therapy for me. You know, everybody needs their thing. This is like a hobby of mine. I enjoy it. I know whenever I'm back in Washington, or even while I was there, like, people that were on the podcast enjoyed it. Otherwise, they wouldn't fucking keep doing it, you know? And so that I just wanted to talk about that as like one of the things that I'm thinking of, because it's like I'm writing this book. It involves an immense amount of creativity. These ideas just come to me as I'm writing, and I'm just like, it's almost like I don't understand how it's fucking happening. So I wanted to, as I'm writing this, like, how did I start writing a book? Like, why did it get here? Why did I think there was this fucking thing happening? Why is the main character like this? What does this all mean? And so, like, that's why I really wrote it, because I'm like, I don't understand my own brain. Maybe this will give me a little bit of insight into how it fucking works. Anyway. So, I don't know how this next section's going to go, and I'm going to try to do my best. You know? This kind of feels like a more of a somber episode because I know what's coming. Like, I've got the outline. I try to keep it outline. I'm going to talk about this month, and part of why this episode is taking a little bit longer, and I did want to talk about it. And I know there's a few people out there that want me to talk about my time in service and whatnot, and I don't really make episodes to appease people, or, you know, there's a lot of podcasts out there that do current events and, like, let's talk about Cardi B and fucking Nicki Minaj getting fucking canceled. Like, I don't really do that. And it's kind of disappointing when I'm like watching other podcasts that I like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now they've switched into just doing pop culture like every other fucking podcast. You know, there's a few few podcasts that are out there that are great. You know, and some do pop culture and stuff like that, but it seems like more and more you can't get an original fucking thought. You know, yeah, their ideas are original, but it's the same topic. It's like you just see this fucking news cycle. Oh, CNN said this. They're talking about this. Fox News is talking about this. Now all the podcasters are talking about it because they do a fucking episode fucking multiple times a week and they need content and they can't come up with their own shit. So they talk about fucking Nicki Minaj and how she was canceled and how some people think that they should listen to her medical advice. Fuck. I'm not even happy that I just said her name on this fucking episode. All right? I try to just create an episode that's unique, original, and just from my brain, you know? I don't want to, like, get into fucking pop culture. That's so lame. Oh, what'd this person say? Oh, I should be outraged. Well, I'm not. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. But anyway, I will talk about a certain thing. You know, it's like, where do I begin with this? Because this is essentially a lifetime, right? It took a little bit because one of the episodes was supposed to happen on the week of 9/11. And 9/11 brings up a lot of memories and bad feelings and good feelings in a way about like life in general and like being, you know, about the times where everybody was like super united through that tragedy. And this is going to be, I think it's going to be hard for me. I already can feel that it's going to be hard to talk about a lot of this stuff. Seeing as this is a comedy podcast, I'm not trying to bring anybody down, but I feel like I want to talk about some of this stuff. It doesn't have to always be so serious, right? 2001, September 11th to 2001, I was in my freshman year of college. I was in a community college, right? Like, not the greatest fucking student. So I got into community college. It's a state university in New York now, SUNY Ulster now. So I was in college and I was taking graphic design, actually. And that was like, I think that was my major. I'm not sure. It was so long. And I dropped out after 9/11, honestly. But I was in college and I may have talked about this before, but I'll get right to it. So I'll just tell the story again. So I was in college right off of the Hudson. Ulster County is right near where West Point is. West Point sits on the Hudson River. So it's morning and I think I got out of class and I was in the cafeteria, whatever they call that in college. I was in the cafeteria. Probably it's community college. I was in the cafeteria. And I was sitting there and I remember that where I was sitting at this table and then behind me, like there was a crowd of people staring at the fucking TV. Now this was like almost 10 o'clock in the morning. It was 9 something. I can't remember exactly the time when the towers were hit. But all this stuff's happening and it's live on TV. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm just like doing some work. And I like, nobody's saying anything. Everybody's just watching the fucking TV. The room is silent. And I like, eventually I have to get up and go because I'm going to my next class. And I'm walking by this crowd of people. I was like, what the fuck's happening? I look up at the TV. I see the towers, right? And the dude's like, I don't know, man. Some pilot hit the some airplane hit the World Trade Center. I was like, my first impression, like I think a lot of people that were watching it at the time is, and I'm 18, right? So we're watching it at the time, and like the first impression is like, oh, some fucking idiot just smashed into a building, you know? Now, I have been to New York City maybe 2 times in my life at that point. You know, we're right up the road. I was an hour away drive time from New York City. but I had never been there. So for me, it was just like kind of detached, and you know, obviously things develop over time. And the world found out, and the whole world was watching at that point. But I did not think about it, because for me at that point in my life, I didn't even think about other countries. Like, you know, I knew about Europe and Germany and all these, you know, normal places. No one ever fucking even talked about Afghanistan or the Middle East or anything, really, unless you were older and or you knew about the stuff. But I don't think a lot of people in my generation really fucking paid attention to that stuff, you know. Everybody's trying to get pussy, drink, party, you know, common teenage shit. I was 18 when this happened, just going in my freshman year of college. And so then I'm like, I start to see the effects happen of still not knowing what the fuck is going on. Didn't think anything of it. I just thought somebody hit a plane, flew a plane into a building, not a 747 or anything, a Cessna. Because to me, it didn't look like a fucking 747 like a lot of people. That's why there's conspiracy theories and whatever. And I just remember I was like going to take the bus back to, the classes were canceled, and I was like, Jesus, what's going on? And I think at that point I heard that there was a terrorist attack. This was like around 10 or 11 or something like that. I couldn't get a ride back home because all of public transportation was shut down in fear of this further attack. So everything basically in the state of New York, and I'm sure other places, but I was in New York, so like the state of New York was just shut down completely. They were afraid something else was going to happen. And I just remember being like confused, because this is basically like new information is hitting me in the face. I didn't really pay attention to the rest of the world growing up. And why would I have? I was a fucking 18-year-old kid, just like in high school, you know what I mean? And now in college, it's like I didn't think about it. And now this is all like new, like what the fuck? Like people hate us, and it's like that's like a very common thing you had seen in New York at that time, is like, why do people fucking hate us? You know, like what's going on? And then, and call me naive or whatever, think that this is like, you're a fucking idiot for knowing this, but it's like, it's a very real thing. I did not fucking know anything about the world at that point. And then I learned over the years, the following years, right? That year. You know, obviously I knew about Desert Storm and the military and whatnot, but it's just one of those things, like, and as the days went on, you'd see the patriotism, the pride that people had in America, and it was like flags everywhere, yellow ribbons everywhere. The fucking invasion happened at the end of the year. And it's like, it's hard, it's good, like, to go back, because I have a TBI, so to go back to some of that time, it's like kind of sparking some of the fucking synapses in my brain to remember a lot of this stuff. But it's like one of the times that I remember very clearly about what the fuck happened in the next few months to years or whatever. So as I'm going through life, and like, this is just a part of life now, like at this point, like war is happening, we're watching on TV, you know, they used to show fucking everything. They used to play everything on the radio. Like, they would play the part, I don't know if you remember this, but the part where the fucking terrorists would kidnap government contractors and like truck drivers and cut their fucking heads off, and the news would play it as like on the radio, so that we knew that this is a very real thing, and this is why we're going over there and fucking kicking the shit out of people. Because these people are fucking animals that are doing this. And to continue to like justify the reason why we're there and whatnot. So I remember the war is still going on, right? It just ended. Now I'm 21 and I'm at a place, I'm out of college. I didn't fucking graduate. I didn't go through after that. But basically that was like the last day I went to college, essentially. I graduated the same year. Started fall semester. September 11th happened. Didn't go to college after that. I tried a few times, and I did take classes while I was in the military. But as the years go on, now I'm 21, and they're playing all this stuff on the radio, and it's just like, it's so fucking sad to hear that people are getting their heads cut off, and they're just trying to help because we were attacked. And you can get into conspiracy theories about whatever, but this is my world, right? Like, I'm explaining that. For what I knew, we were attacked. For what I knew, there was Americans over there getting their heads sawed off, and they're playing it on the radio. Now, I'm 21 at this point, literally working to party because that was my world. I'm this fucking young dude going out, hooking up with chicks at the bar, and like just being a young guy enjoying life, living in a fucking studio apartment, driving a piece of shit car, not really enjoying my life, not really doing much with my life other than partying and drinking, meeting people, living in a downtown fucking studio apartment, driving a fucking beater car. just horrible. And as I'm doing this fucking bullshit ass job of tax prep, which is it's tax prep, it sounds fancy, right? Like, no, it's me looking at fucking tax returns and looking at the numbers on them, and then filing them for the next fucking drone in the work cycle to come file this in the next section in this fucking seasonal job that I was doing. And as like they're playing this stuff on the radio, and I'm putting these files in the fucking thing, and now I was promoted to that because I was doing a great job looking at numbers or some shit. I stopped what I was doing, and it was like a kick in the balls to hear this, and and it made me think about my life, about what I'm fucking doing, and like how much I'm contributing to the world of just being this fucking dude that hangs out at bars and drinks. And it was in that moment when they're playing this over this blood-curdling gagging of this dude's throat being sliced, sawed off, his head's being sawed off of his fucking torso. It's hard to believe too, like that was happening. Like the news would play that back then. There was and it's so contrasted to today, where it's like that is a very different sort of attitude the media takes, and this is part of why this shit's so hard to talk about. They were very, like, the media had one focus. It's like everybody left and right was like, you can watch documentaries about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. You didn't live through that as an adult. They had one goal, and it was just make everybody as angry as possible, which they still do, but make everybody angry as possible and be united in a sense. It was a very different way to make people angry and very pro-America. This was 20 years ago. They were very focused on making America very pro-America. Now, to all the other countries out there that maybe listen to this, I'm not trying to say, this is no way, shape, or form saying America is the greatest. I am very proud to be an American, and I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of my life at times. I'm not proud of my life at times, but I'm trying to explain what the fuck was happening during those times, and especially for maybe young kids not young kids, but you know what I mean, like younger generations. I mean, the 18-year-olds that are listening to this. But so it made me think about stuff, and it made me go online and look at the military, and I was like, I don't want to be in combat. My brother was a Marine for a little bit, and it was like I grew up watching war movies like Platoon and stuff like that, and these Vietnam movies like Full Metal Jacket. Platoon was, like I said, it was one of the main ones I watched. And so like that was my idea of war and what it was. And so like it terrified me, to be honest, to think that if I join the military, it's going to be like that. It's going to be like boot camp, because that's all you see. And then something, I looked on the website, and it's like it had all these jobs, nothing to do with combat. And even though it's wartime, I essentially went through the process. I won't get into the details. I won't get to about training. A lot of SEALs want to talk about SEAL and fucking buds and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into like training, because it doesn't fucking matter. I'm not a SEAL. I wasn't a SEAL, so don't take it that way. I'm just explaining like a lot of dudes that were in combat jobs or special operations or whatever wants to like go about it. And just for clarity, I was a TAC P and went to selection and became a soft TAC P. So I was under AFSOC eventually, and for most of my career, actually. So I go through all this stuff, and I enlist in the military and find out what it's actually like. It's kind of shocking to actually see what the military is actually like. And years go by, deploy, found out about that. Worked with some great people over the years, some different kinds of units. Worked with every service that we have, minus Space Force. That would have been dope if we were doing like satellite airstrikes and stuff like that. Space Force didn't exist at the time, but so just over the years and like, going through time, I deployed. I'll talk about one section of my deployments. This was 2010. I was deployed to Helmand with a ODA, which is a Special Forces team. I was the Air Force JTAC. And along the way, over the course of the 7 months I was with those guys, a lot of us got injured, including myself. We almost didn't make it back. Some of the dudes didn't. One specific guy I won't talk about because I don't have permission from the family, because this is kind of like just an episode I'm doing. But his last mission, he's a dog handler. He's doing his left seat, right seat ride, which is essentially a handover for the new guy that's coming to replace him. And he was doing his left seat, right seat ride, and we got basically drawn into an area, and he got point blank shot in the head. Not point blank, but like from the other side of a wall. Myself, the guy I'm talking about, we were on the 240s in the back of the MRAPs, and so it was like a clear shot. I remember distinctly 3 shots, and then he was gone. And that is a moment that sticks with me, and I could go in depth on that. That's part of the book that I wrote that I never released. But there's that event where, calling in the medevac and like seeing everything and all that stuff that kind of affects me to this day and like brings me back to 9/11 when that all happened. As those events do for a lot of people. So a few years go by, I'm deployed again to a different area of the country in Afghanistan. And we get into some bad situations. There's one mission where we hit IEDs on these these LTATVs. So they're like Razor scooters essentially. And 3 guys and a dog were basically vaporized. Again, I'm not going to say their names, but because I don't have permission of the families, and I'm not going to talk about specifics with it. But that being that close to that kind of stuff is another example of why I think about like this day and why 9/11 and why it's hard to talk about, especially with the events that just happened to end the war, and to think about the fact that there was a deadline for 9/11. I was talking to some of my coworkers at this job that I do, and everybody's military, former military. A lot of them are pilots, Air Force, Marine pilots, former Marine Air Force pilots, and the idea that why pick a day? This isn't about any administration or anything like that. It's just the idea that a day was picked as like a deadline to signify 20 years as like a symbolic thing is kind of disgusting to me, especially with how we all know it turned out and how many people were killed at the end of it. And you can go over like, why didn't we do certain things another way? It's like backseat driving, essentially. Like everybody can kind of see how it should have went. I'm not one of these people that ever say like, that how did this person die so young? Like one of the things that like I don't really, because it's not a popular opinion, is like we signed up in the military, and like that's the risk that we all take by being a part of that, especially in combat and special operations jobs. That's the risk we take. It doesn't mean it's less tragic. It's just like, to be surprised by things like this is foolish, I think. That's my opinion. It's foolish to think that this was going to go any other way than it did. But what bothers me a lot about it and makes me kind of sick is the setting a date to put it in. Set a date for the end of it and let the world know we're pulling out on this to say we survived 20 years with a force we could not win against and no one has ever won against. Like, that, no one's minus like Genghis Khan, who still like took fucking forever to do anything in that land. It's a fucking, there's a movie called The Beast. It's about the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and it's exactly what that place is. It's a beast. It's hard not to look at this whole thing and question like, what the fuck is the point? And then what was the point of all of it? Like the loss of friends that I've had, like seeing that shit, like being a part of events or missions that were like big events and big missions that I have experience with, and the amount of money spent, the amount of equipment lost, the way that we looked at these people 20 years ago as terrorists, and now it's a legitimate government for some people in the world. It makes me feel like this. Now, I'm still proud of my service. I'm still proud of the dudes that I was with. I'm still proud of everybody out there. But that served and like was a part of that. But it's just one of those things that like, it makes me look at it like it's all a fucking game, and it hurts, to like see to be 38 and live a full life, an adult life, from the beginning of the war on terror to the end, to see how it was ended is a motherfucker to witness. And that's my thoughts on 9/11/2021. Anyway, enough sad, enough hurt, enough somber episodes. The next episode, I wanted to talk about this, knowing full well that I would get a little bit emotional during it, because it is like basically my whole adult life, seeing it from the being involved in like being an adult at 18, going from a child graduating through grade school, high school, witnessing 9/11 right up the road from where it was at. Obviously, I wasn't there in New York City when that happened, but I'm right up the road. It's close to home, you know. So like going from that, you know, going into manhood, and then now I'm 38 and I've got a son who's 10, and knowing that was like war had still been going on, the endless war, that's what we all called it, right? And he's 10, and it's hard to see how it went, you know? And there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do is move on, and like I think it kind of shapes how you think about the world and government, and like the question is, do they even give a fuck about any of us? And I think the fucking answer is glaring. Like, it's glaring with everything that's happened over the past fucking 2-3 years about who cares about what, and what the fuck is the point of a lot of things, you know? What I, bringing up my son, it's like, you know, I start to think about things differently, like with how it was and how it's going right now. And it kind of resets me to want to appreciate people that I care about more, you know, and like show them that. And I think that's really the most important thing, like at this stage in my life. But anyway, like I said, getting back to normal episodes that aren't so fucking sad in the future, hopefully. I hope this isn't like something that it turns into as me just fucking sitting here crying on a fucking podcast to anybody who will listen. I want it to be more of me releasing the Kraken. Maybe not too much. I've been gaining a little bit of weight, as you could probably tell, maybe. Yeah, I like to get my whistle wet sometimes. But the book is coming. Really the reason is like 9/11 happened. I took a little bit of time to write in the book. I've been writing the book. Hopefully I can get through that soon. I'm trying to write 1,000 words a day. It's a little bit harder some days. I don't know if you've written 1,000 words in a fucking day to like write about, you know, maybe you did for college or something like that, but to write a fucking completely bullshit story, it's a little bit challenging. And then I have fucking ADD. Whoa! ADD. So, you know, at least that's what my mom said when she gave me fucking Ritalin as a kid. No, but like I have trouble focusing a lot of times. So for me to fucking write 1,000 words is a fucking monumental achievement, honestly. So this book should be fucking epic, dude. Anyway, sorry for getting emotional in front of you guys and girls. Anyway, let's get real for a second. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope that you guys support this podcast. The best way to support this podcast is go pick up some merch. See, I got a Hubert Cumberdale Death Cheetah t-shirt. It says "Loyal to Turmoil" on the front here. So you can, if you want to support this podcast and help it grow, you can pick up some fucking merch, sick merch, violentprofessional.com. You can also go to StrikeForceEnergy.com and use code EvilVibes at checkout for 25% off your total order of Strikeforce Energy. You know what I do? I wake up in the morning, I just hit this pump bottle. You know? I hit this pump bottle right here. I do 2 squirts in a fucking thing of water. I'm hydrated and I'm energized. Don't let the crooked finger fool you. Isn't that some shit? I have to reveal it. Look at this fucking finger. I can't straighten the shit out because of that fucking knife. I should go to the hospital. I should have went to the hospital. I was like, no, this fucking, and it bled for fucking hours. Stupid. Anyway, Strikeforce Energy. You go support this podcast by supporting them and use code EvilVibes, 25% off your total order. That includes subscriptions, merchandise, t-shirts, fucking whatever. And, it helps this podcast grow. And if you appreciate this podcast as much as I have appreciated this podcast, then we can be friends and we can drink Strike Force together. It's a great time. It's a wonderful drink and wonderful threads. And with that, kids, I want to say thank you for checking out this episode of the Violent Professional Podcast. Please subscribe, please like, please comment, and let me know what you think. All of your suggestions will be looked at, and I will, agree to disagree with you on some of them, but maybe I'll talk about whatever you fucking put in an episode sometimes. So, thank you. See you next time. See you on the next episode of the Violent Professional Podcast. Bye.